Hey everybody, this is Perch, and I didn't review all the issues of Death Metal, but this is issue number 7. It's the finale to Death Metal, an event that kind of grew in scope over the course of 2020 as it became clear that plans were being shuffled and DC was moving around, and Didio was being removed from the company, and well, lots of changes occurred in DC last year. So this is the finale, and really it's intended to kind of set things up for the future. So you're going to hear a lot of reviews on this comic, and this isn't me so much taking you through page by page of what's going on, but more just kind of a commentary on where this event has gone and kind of who it's for and what does it point to for the future. So obviously there's spoilers in this thing. So if you haven't read the issue and you're wanting it, please don't listen to this video and then complain that there are spoilers. There's definitely spoilers here. So this issue basically is kind of the big finale battle, and that's what most of the pages are devoted to. It's the Batman who laughs, who's arisen to be a really Batman dark multi-god character, and he is going to fight it out to the finish with a golden Wonder Woman who's also ascended into this kind of hyper godhood, and she's gold like her lasso. And the Batman who laughs is black like his chain. This issue, and then on the surface of this kind of battleground planet are all the traditional heroes and villains that we know against dark, twisted versions of the dark multiverse that are battling it up. And so, we do get a planet shoved into the Batman who laughs face because that's what we're doing now. We're putting planets into mouths. And through this battle, the big fight, of course, is Wonder Woman and the Batman who laughs. But then I hate to say comic relief, but that's kind of how it comes across. Is on the surface of the planet, we get these moments, kind of this hodgepodge of moments between characters, and it's really a lot of the things set up through Scott Snyder's Justice League run. We get a lot of kind of moments of that we get. And that's what's in for it. There's definitely a more humorous bent to it. People are throwing out their catchphrases. It's designed. It's kind of that gallows humor that Snyder and Capullo both have kind of moved to, where they're throwing out quips and things while faces are being kind of torn off, and it's meant to be jokey violence, but not serious violence, and it works to an extent, but this whole series, this whole Death Metal series has been a lot of that, and it kind of is epitomized by the Batman who laughs and the Robin King and these characters that are kind of jokily revel in violence. It's like the Joker, but it's augmented into kind of heavy metal versions of itself. And I will say, I went back and I read the full line of Death Metal before reading this, all the issues that came before it of the main series, not all the spinoffs. And it really, there's no way to say this without sounding like a big insult. And I know if Scott's listening to this, he will be insulted. I don't mean it that way, but it's by and large a very shallow story. It's a very Saturday morning cartoon kind of story. It's, hey, there's some evil versions of the heroes, there's some good versions of the heroes, and let's mix them up and they will fight. And so the narration is trying to elevate this whole thing up a little bit to be, that there's this big cosmic battle of good and evil and hope versus hopelessness and kind of, what it means to stand on principles and all that kind of stuff. But it's maybe the weight of that is subtracted a little bit when you've got various shenanigans going on. You do get, and you do get some things that some people are pointing out, maybe some vague shots at Didio or at Tom King. They have or Scott Lobdell, maybe they have Wally West, who's on his Mobius chair with the Dr. Manhattan powers, and the Barry Allen is saying, you're not Wally, you're just a bad idea. And it's hard not to read some meta commentary into that. This whole comic and Death Metal in general has been a lot of meta commentary kind of injected into this thing, so much at times that it feels like it starts to feel like it's making fun of itself to some extent. We do get some moments that are honest to the characters. You get a very kind of cocky, we can do this all day and all night and look damn good doing it kind of line from Nightwing. It does kind of abstract the characters up to their stereotypes. The Connor Kent's like going, oh, gross, and it just, so a lot of this, Bizarro loves science. It feels like, to use a wrestling analogy, when they do a battle royal and you have a bunch of legends come in to the battle royal, and they're not really there to serve any purpose, but they come in and they do their gimmick and they say their line, and Farouk will say "damn," and it's kind of this gallery. That's really what's going on here behind the scenes. But the real story is this. Basically, that Wonder Woman and the Batman Who Laughs have punched each other backward to the beginning of it all, and they're locked in this terrible struggle between the two of them. But Wonder Woman refuses to submit. He basically gives her an offer of I'll give you a planet that is where you can be happy and everything will be good. All you need to do is just let me erase the rest. Basically let me take care of everything else. But she refuses to. She kicks him in the face, and it's a heroic moment for Wonder Woman, but it's also just like kind of punch, 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 talk, 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 punch, punch, punch. There's some really cool visuals here of characters being punched forward and backward through time. That's a pretty interesting sequence that he's got here. But basically, Wonder Woman punchifies the Batman Who Laughs really, really good and punches him into the end of everything, the Death Sun, into which all Earths, all stories were long ago absorbed into one place. And this is where they are here. Basically the deities, the beings that are going to erase the entire multiverse, undo everything, because this whole reality has collapsed in and of itself, and it's going to be erased. So the Batman Who Laughs gives her one last chance. Meanwhile, back in the fight, we get the heroes kind of trying to rise up again. Batman is able to outsmart the Robin King, and we see a brief zombie Alfred. Lex Luthor basically gets his revenge on an evil Superman while saving the good Superman. And Wonder Woman refuses to submit, even if it means that reality's over. She won't submit. So she pictures everything. She uses her hope and her idealism to picture kind of a perfect world where none of this has happened and they have endless time ahead of them. She sees all of her friends. She burns the Batman Who Laughs away into nothing, and hopefully it stays that way, although just a minute there. So basically shoves this evil villain, vanquishing him into the flames, and then there is nothing. And so then we get kind of a very much, it's a Harry Potter moment. So it is the right down to like the gray steam and kind of people coming out in this, is it a dream or is it real kind of conversation between Wonder Woman and one of these architects of the multiverse, who tells Wonder Woman, when we create a multiverse, Diana, our hope is that life within will follow a path. It will send to simple selfishness. It will send from selfishness to seek greater truths. Your multiverse, even after being restarted, has often failed to do so, and at times has gone so far as to fight against its growth, to revel in its basic instincts. Hard again not to see that as kind of some meta commentary about the current times. I'm sure there is at least some aspect to that. But anyway, thanks to Diana's, her kind fighting for good, knowing that, fighting for us, even when they would not have saved you, has caused them to rethink some of their methods. And this leads to the big, MacGuffin is the wrong word, but big kind of status quo change. The big Harry Potter moment in Smoke, where it says, we will remember all the history, all the stories, and everybody will remember everything, and there will be no kind of reboots or restarts. Instead, it's everything is rebooted into everything. And that is an interesting concept. For all the good and the hope of what that means, it's not going to hold up. Very, very quickly, because this is a trap of comics. You say you don't want to be bound by continuity, you don't want to be bound by this history, but then when you have a large ensemble of people all working together to write comics, there is a sequential narrative to it. That's the nature of comics. So the idea of everything matters and nothing matters, but everything matters. It's a good slogan. It's more slogan than act, and we'll see. I again, as I've talked to some of the people involved in this comic and other things, I pointed this out, and I've heard back the no, you don't get it. We will make everything matter. Again, sounds good, but again, is that the goal of comics? Is the goal to make everything matter within the comic? I mean, in reality, everything what matters to the reader is what matters to the reader. The reader doesn't need everything to matter. The reader's going to gravitate towards certain things. So it seems kind of backwards from what we want. The meta commentary on this meta commentary is DC has been fairly obsessed with wanting to clean up their continuity. They did when they did their first Crisis, and they've done it for their subsequent reboots and the New 52 and then Rebirth and all the rest. They're always trying to clean up their continuity. But the meta commentary that you might have that was not intended in this book, at least doesn't read it that way, is, did any of that matter? Like, why was the need to clean it up in the first place? Did you just make things more confusing than ever each time you did it? And so this story in Death Metal and the new status quo of DC is that everything matters, and we're not rebooting, everything just matters. But anyway, it's a strange little end. So they walk off into the mist. Dumbledore gets back on the train and Harry Potter goes back to living. We know that Diana's now moving on to the afterlife, and she's going to have adventures in there for a period of time until ultimately, coming back to things. But we switch then up to kind of our two, Greg Capullo's drawing this. He does a great job, very, very gritty, good stuff, all the rest. But then we get Yannick Paquette and Brian Hitch for kind of our two kind of final stories. So our first little separation takes us to, Superman's giving a speech. Lots of people are smiling. We get to the scene where everybody is dancing together, and Superman is singing and Batman's playing a guitar. I will say, I don't want to be like Mr. Stick in the Mud, doesn't like these kind of things. But the idea of kind of them rocking out, and it just doesn't work for me. I question who's really getting off on that. I know there are people who are loving the idea of seeing Wally West playing the drums and having a good time, and Batman on it with a guitar, but it just feels so off to me. It just I see scenes like this, and it's at least Jarro's got a cowbell, and that's nice. But anyway, the idea of this is heavy metal, this is rock, was definitely omnipresent in our new Omniverse throughout this entire series, and that stuff doesn't appeal to me. It does to others, cool, but to me, it's it always feels like kind of well, put it this way: if you're watching Cobra Kai, they do a lot of jokes about how Johnny is out of touch. He's really into babes and 80s rock music and hair bands and all the rest, and kind of the jokes on him. He's a man out of time. It's cool, but he also is. It's like you're trying too hard. And that's kind of the joke that Cobra Kai sets up for itself, is that you're getting some nostalgia, but some of that nostalgia is cringy, and it kind of leads to the charm of this kind of hapless character. And here, it feels a lot like that to me. It feels like whenever they go heavy into rock and roll, it feels very, I don't know. It's not we don't have the lovable Johnny character to tie it all together. But this is just me. Other people have other feelings on it. But the real kind of key here is that we get to the dark side of the moon, because of course it's the dark, the most metal side of the moon. And they have set up a giant kind of doorknob symbol of the new totality. And it's a little space station filled with a team of heroes and villains. We've got Hawk Girl and Hawk Woman, Martian Manhunter, Mr. Terrific, Vandal Savage, Talia, and Lex Luthor, who are basically going to station themselves to work together as heroes and villains to look at kind of this new multiverse and to be able to maybe peek into them. They show flashes of different versions of the multiverse, different iterations of that. It's I can't tell if they are seeing it or if they're If this is happening all in the background, I don't know. But at any rate, the reveal is that it is an infinite frontier of possibilities. Thus, you get that little branding, that trademark, infinite frontier. And they've discovered that their Earth, the Earth that they're on, is not the center of the multiverse, that there's a different center. There's actually two sources of energy. So when we get for our Infinite Frontier Crisis of Infinite Frontiers event in a few years. But it basically, there's a new center of the Earth, and they're calling it the Elseworld, which is a nice nod to the Elseworld stuff. And then our comic wraps up with Brian Hitch, and he's basically, we revealed that the narration, which we knew, was Sergeant Rock, which I'd love to feel is I would love to believe that this character is picked as a good narrator of the events and everything that's going on. But it feels a little bit more like he was picked because his name was Rock, but but maybe not. Anyway, he's writing in his journal back in 1943 on Earth Zero, and he's met by Hawkman and the rest of the JSA as they leap into action. And it's at least there's some belief here. At least I would believe that this is going to be the comic, a comic that's announced here for April of the JSA, probably by Venditti. Would be interesting to see if Venditti and Brian Hitch are teaming back up again to do the JSA. It feels at least like that could be a clue of what's happening. Also, kind of feels like maybe Yannick is going to be put on this totality comic, and maybe that's going to be a something. At any rate, this all leads to Future State, which are glimpses of other futures and possibilities in this multiverse, where everything and nothing matters simultaneously. I've read those issues as well. I will say they're better than a lot of people are just looking forward to cringe fest in general, but these comics are not bad. Yara Fleur, Wonder Woman, is pretty good. The next Batman's not for me, I guess is the best way to put it. Just a lot of revision. So there's some interesting stuff here. I think I can do some reviews of some of those comics another time. But it is it makes sense as a vehicle that we're going to get some other takes on some of these heroes for a couple weeks, and then we get back into the DC universe in general. Overall, Death Metal is trying to be something bigger than it is. It's an event comic, and unfortunately, in a world where there's event comics constantly, like every Marvel's doing one event comic a quarter, then it is a case where it's hard to make events stand out. This is one of those cases where the event has to be. It's setting up a new status quo for DC. It came with a lot of baggage. And what I mean by baggage is like a year of delays and, the kind of the big turmoil within DC Comics in general of everything they're doing. Is a lot resting on its shoulders. And as an event comic, it really can't live up to all of that potential. It's meant as a segue from one place to another. That's what it is. It's fine as a comic. It really depends. Either you're going to like it or you're going to hate it. It's a little bit, again, like the kind of the meta commentary and kind of the structure of this, it feels very self-indulgent is probably the best way to put it. It's not, this isn't the kind of comic I'd want to see all the time. As an event, I guess fine. It just, I guess I want to say I don't love it. I don't particularly like what is done here. I do think that the status quo changes they're making could set up for a lot of great possibilities and other things. There's an aspect to this comic where it feels like the characters are just kind of being drug out onto a panel. They get to say a line and then they're dismissed of. And so when you get to the weighty part where Wonder Woman's actually doing something to save the multiverse and it's a big deal, it doesn't feel like a big deal anymore. And part of that's because the Batman Who Laughs has been so overused, and that character and the personality was cloned for the Robin King and just all this stuff. It just starts to feel like there's a bunch of high concept ideas here wrapped in a lot of kind of nostalgia pitches and then very shallow kind of one-liners. And I don't know. That sounds pretty brutal. I don't mean it that way. Again, I like a lot of people involved. I would like to, I have a decent relationship with Scott Snyder. I think he's a good guy. He tries very hard to do what he does. So nothing against any of that. And I'm sure this comic will sell well and it will. But the real value of this comic, whether it, one way or another, is does it set up the new status quo, the new future in a major, powerful way? And the answer to that is, we'll see. I think the next 6 months will tell the story about whether this was just a kind of passing event that doesn't really matter, or something meaningful for DC. And that's ultimately what it's going to come down to. But anyway, those are my thoughts on it. You may have yours. Leave them in the comments below. Let me know what you think of all this. Good, bad, evil. This is not a terrible comic. It's not a great comic either. It kind of is moving. It's moving things from one place to another. And what people do with that new place really is the open question. I don't know. I have a feeling in the comments, some people are going to say I'm being way too hard on it, and some people are going to say I'm being way too easy on it. So at least I'm on brand for that. Thanks for listening.